Methink the lady doth protest too much. Emily Dickinson is a poet who is very fond of writing I-based poems, poems which would seem autobiographical from the speaker. In fact, Emily Dickinson has 142 poems that begin with the word I, not you, I, not I. 142 poems, including, but not limited to, I found the words to every thought. I gained it. I gave myself to him. I got so I could take his name. I groped for him before I knew. What a saucy bit of literature. I have a bird in spring. I have a king who does not speak. I have never seen volcanoes. I have no like but this. I haven't told my garden yet. Neither have I, Emily. But this poem, the poem we're discussing today, The Brain is Wider Than the Sky, is a poem from Emily Dickinson that does not contain a single utterance of the word I. In fact, we invoke the second person. We have yous in here, but no I. However, with what this poem is about, the incredible power of the human mind, the depths of the brain power wielded by human beings, we are left to believe that this poem, more than any other in her canon, more than any other in the big old book of Emily Dickinson poetry, this poem above all others is probably Emily Dickinson writing about Emily Dickinson. This video is part of 3 separate playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being obviously the Echoes of Emily playlist, but number 2 being a playlist of Emily Dickinson poetry discussions, and third, the general playlist for poetry discussions. If you like or appreciate the work that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. So consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more literature in the future. The brain is wider than the sky, for put them side by side, the one the other will contain with ease, and you beside. The brain is deeper than the sea, for hold them blue to blue, the one the other will absorb, as sponges buckets do. The brain is just the weight of God, for heft them pound for pound, and they will differ if they do, as syllable from sound. The brain is wider than the sky, for put them side by side, the one the other will contain with ease, and you beside. So, one of the questions that comes up here with this, we start off with the phrase, the brain. Okay, so the brain is wider than the sky. Whose brain? Because if it is my brain that will contain the sky and you beside, that is different than if it is your brain that contains the sky and you beside. This is maybe not necessarily the point or purpose of the poem, but it's something that is an interesting nuance that we can point out and think about through different readings of the poem. Now, the brain is deeper than the sea, for hold them blue to blue, the one the other will absorb, as sponges buckets do. So, the brain is so powerful, it can absorb the ocean like a sponge in a bucket. What kind of sponges and buckets do they have in the mid-1800s? I'm not sure, but I imagine they looked roughly like the ones that we have now. This is an interesting line, but we're going to see in a moment that there is maybe a little bit more going on than just expressing the ease with which the mind, the brain, is capable of these acts. The brain is just the weight of God. What could that mean? For heft them pound for pound, and they will differ if they do as syllable from sound. Now, the sky. The brain is wider than the sky. What does the sky represent? In my opinion, the sky represents possibility. This is before the age of flight. The sky represents, so hope is the thing with feathers, right? This is another Emily Dickinson poem. Hope, the thing with feathers, a bird traverses the sky in ways that we cannot. Hope, you hope for what is possible. You hope for possibilities. You hope to reach potentialities. Not to sound too much like Deepak Chopra, but we hope for you hope for the possible. The possible is the expanse. The possible is the more limitless the possible, the more boundless our existence can be. The brain is wider than that which is possible. The brain is more than that which is possible. The brain is deeper than the sea. So I think there's two possibilities here, really. But the sea equals adventure or mystery. I will say it that way because when you hear the word sea, it really, in sort of common vernacular, can mean two different things. The sea, a lot of people refer to the ocean as the sea. But a sea is a limited body of water. The sea, is this a reference to the ocean? They might mean slightly different things. I am inferring that by sea, Emily Dickinson is meaning something closer to the ocean than a more limited parameter of water, meaning that it would be mystery and adventure, that the brain is deeper than, meaning that the brain will absorb as sponges buckets do. What we are saying here is that the brain is capable of all of this mystery, solving all of this mystery. The brain is capable of assuming all of this adventure. If it is, however, a smaller idea of the water, well, really, even if it's the ocean, what this could be is kind of the argument that I have set up for this third stanza. The brain is just the weight of God, for heft them pound for pound, and they will differ if they do, as syllable from sound. God is the word. God is the answer. God is that which matters. All of these things, the sky, the sea, God, all of these things, for all intents and purposes in our mortal form, are limitless, are boundless. All of these things, for give and take, if you will, are things without limit. What Emily Dickinson is saying here, and possibly ironically so, right? Emily Dickinson's mind was incredible. Emily Dickinson's mind was a Hemi engine, you know. Any other of these types of metaphors you want to put on how powerful a mind could be, that was Emily Dickinson's mind. These three metaphors are sort of different metaphors for endlessness, for the great expanse, for everything. So it is an interesting argument to be had here as to, is Emily Dickinson saying that the mind is just infinity, or is this the old argument that some infinities are bigger than others, right? So For example, you can have an infinity of whole numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way to infinity. You can also have an infinity of fractional numbers 1, 1.001, 1.002, 1.003, all the way to infinity. The second infinity is technically a bigger infinity because it allows you the smaller infinities therein. This argument from Emily Dickinson would be that the mind is not just an infinity, not just numbers. Well, the mind is also the infinity of colors. The mind is also the infinity of space. That is what Emily Dickinson is sort of, in my opinion, making the argument for here. Now, a nihilistic interpretation of this poem. The brain is just the weight of God. For heft them pound for pound, and they will differ if they do as syllable from sound. Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead. This poem is saying that God and the mind differ if they do as syllable from sound, meaning, in effect, they are one and the same. Syllable, a syllable is made. I am speaking in syllables. A sound is received. You are receiving my syllables. So this is, sure, there is perhaps an infinity of interpretation to be had herein. I would be open to all of them, but if you want to give this a good nihilistic reading, what we're saying here is that the mind, the brain, is the instrument of God, or is God the instrument of the brain? Both of those readings would be allowed by this poem. But to say that the brain and God weigh the same thing, that they are the same thing, is simply to state that Emily Dickinson is coming to us perhaps with a full-throated admission that she does not believe in a divine God, but perhaps believes that God is simply an advent of the mind. Now, if we want to get into a type of hauntological experience with this poem, hauntology, best perhaps summarized as the future is canceled, is an affliction simply buried within the brain. It can never really exist. It can never be real because the future only exists in the mind. When is it the future? When is it the future? Is the future ever now? No. Definitionally, the future is in the future. The future is only a construct of the mind. We don't actually have futures. We only have a progressing series of nows. So, this poem saying that the brain is so much more powerful than all of these things is setting the brain up to be the most powerful thing. And perhaps that is not directly a hauntological interpretation, but if hauntology is represented as a corruption of the future, what Emily Dickinson is telling us here is that the tool of corruption, your pretty little gray matter, is infinitely powerful and could infinitely corrupt the future. The brain is wider than the sky, for, put them side by side, the one the other will contain with ease, and you beside. The brain is deeper than the sea, for hold them blue to blue, the one the other will absorb, as sponges buckets do. The brain is just the weight of God, for heft them pound for pound, and they will differ, if they do, as syllable from sound.